if you're in the United Kingdom and you're, say, a middle-class white family, and your daughter turns 18 or even 16 or 17, and she decides she wants to have a large proportion of genital tissue removed for trivial reasons, like she thinks it looks better, at least when she's 18, she'll be allowed to do so. But if you come along from a Muslim religious family and you say, I'd like you to remove less tissue, say part of my clitoral hood, for what I take to be metaphysically very weighty reasons, I think this actually helps me be a good religious person. In the very same country, you'd be forbidden from doing so as long as the doctor characterizes what you're doing as a female circumcision. So again, we have to decide what our reasoning is. My view is, if you're an adult, it should be up to you what you do with your body. And we don't have to inquire into your reasons, and we don't have to judge your reasons, and who are we anyway? Do we have all the right answers about what the correct reasons are for pursuing bodily modification? If you're an adult, and generally speaking, you're allowed to pursue surgery, and you're going to pay for it, it should be up to you. But what's happening now in the United Kingdom and also in Australia is that whether a person is allowed as an adult to pursue a medically unnecessary genital surgery is adjudicated on the basis of their perceived racial or religious group membership. And so a surgery that's even more invasive, that's done for what are reasons that are accepted by Western culture, namely cosmetic reasons, which you might think should not be given much weight, are allowed. Whereas if somebody comes along and says, I want a female circumcision that's less invasive than what you just allowed that white girl to do, they'll say, no, we can't do it. It's illegal. That's FGM in our country, because the UK and Australia don't even have an age distinction. They say that even adult women are not allowed to pursue FGM, which they simply define on racial grounds. So in the US, it's a bit different. If you're 18, you can sort of do whatever you want. And I think that that's actually basically the right view. It's not up to the person to interrogate your reasons and condescend to you that they know better than you why you're modifying your body. I think there's one further consideration here, which is the stereotyped view is that if you're coming from an immigrant community and you want to do something for cultural reasons, the view is that you must be brainwashed in your culture. Now, there's something to the view that it may not be a free choice, as the professor was just saying, in that you may not be fully informed. You might feel pressured into doing it. But then it's often thought that, you know, Western women are just making free choices, like they're these free agents walking around. Well, Western women are obviously influenced by their culture too. They're made to feel that their vulvas are ugly because the cosmetic surgeons can earn money by causing them to feel ashamed of their bodies. So it's not that they're just making some totally free choice. We're all influenced by our cultural upbringing. We all make decisions under constraints. And so again, whatever our view is about whether an adult should be allowed to modify their body, I just insist that it be done equally, that each person be given the same reason and not a separate story depending on what group they come from.
Which is why I think we should move away from this medical complications thing, because type 4, there's no medical complications. I think it goes back to respecting genital autonomy of children.
The question of harm reduction is curious, because there's a distinction to be drawn between whether something is harmful and whether it's wrongful or disrespectful. So something can be harmful without disrespecting the person. So for example, if I accidentally bump into you and knock you over and you scrape your knee, I will have harmed you, but I didn't cause you any disrespect because I didn't intrude on a decision you should have been able to make for yourself. But I can also wrong you without necessarily harming you. So if you're asleep and I fondle your genitals without your permission, I maybe didn't harm you, but I've disrespected you because I've taken a decision that you didn't give me permission to take that should have been your decision. And so I think the problem with a lot of the discourse is that most people conflate these two things, including the World Health Organization, including a lot of doctors. They think to themselves, well, if it's not harmful, it can't be wrong. And that doesn't follow. Something may not be physically harmful in the sense of there's some measurable functional outcome, but it may still be a matter of disrespect to the person. And that's sort of the view that I take. And then on the matter of psychological harm, just quickly, those studies are almost impossible to run because the psychological effects of a potentially traumatizing event, like an early active child genital cutting, depend on so many variables, including the individual's resilience, their attitude or perspective toward the cutting. So if you see it as bringing you closer to God, you're probably not going to be traumatized. If you see it as your parents are marking you on your genitals with a sign of their religious beliefs, you might be extremely traumatized. And that's actually independent of the degree of severity of the cutting. And so the ceremonial context, the age at which it happens, individual attributes of the child as to whether they're inclined to be empathic towards the suffering of others. Those sorts of individual attributes vary considerably. And so you won't ever be able to make a sort of unilateral statement about how it affects psychological health, because that will always be highly variable.